Well, hello. I'm sitting down here today with Patty Krantz-Supin, and joining us remotely is Regina Geerhofer. And you are co-chairs of a group within the International Standardization Framework called the SNAIG.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so we have a lot of questions about that, what that is. But before we get into it, I wanted to give you both a moment to introduce yourselves and your roles.
I'm the secretary of TC62, SC62B, and SC62C in IEC, and also one of the co-conveners of SNAIG, together with Patty, my vice chair in TC62.
Yes.
And 62 is medical equipment, medical electrical equipment.
Medical equipment, software, and systems, with a focus on safety and effectiveness.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Very important. Okay.
And I'm Patty Krantz-Supin. So I'm from industry, and my role is, as Regina said, the IEC TC62 chair, but I'm also the co-convener of SNAIG. And I also hold an officer or a chair position within ISO TC210. So I am the convener of the Joint Working Group 2 on the TC210 side, and Joint Working Group 3 on the IEC side. Don't ask me why they have two different numbers for the same Joint Working Group, but it's for medical device software Joint Working Group.
Okay. So both of you very involved in the work that's going on in ISO TC210 and IEC Technical Committee 62.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So tell us a little bit about the SNAIG and how it fits into the framework of those international committees.
So SNAIG, what a wonderful acronym. It's Software Networks AI Advisory Group. And it is an advisory group for the IEC TC62 officers and the committee. So it fits under the IECTC.
We try in the group to monitor standards regarding emerging technologies. Currently, it's mainly AI. But this is not because this is the only topic. We have also 3D printing, computational modeling, and other topics. But currently, the regulators write a lot regulations regarding AI. So we follow the regulators in this regard. We monitor the landscape of standards, and we try to create meaningful advice. And since the two conveners are also officers in the committee, we can often act faster than other advisory committees because we have not to go over a CAC or a plenary to decide to start something. Mm-hmm. After the process is the same as ever. You make Q documents, you discuss it, you make votings, you know, the normal ISO IEC process.
Well, AI is, of course, a rapidly evolving field. There's a lot of regulations that are coming up. They differ across jurisdictions, of course, and there's a lot of activity going on in the standardization community, quite a bit of which is coming through SC42, which is a lot of horizontal work, what we would call non-sector specific. It's intended to be more general. So that's a lot to monitor. Are you seeing a lot of also vertical work starting to happen relative to the medical device sector or the healthcare sector?
Yeah, we see a lot of horizontal, but we see also a good dozen already of running projects for the medical sector in a broader sense. And the horizontals are totally fine in their nature as horizontals, but when you're a sector, you have always your own regulations, steering your concepts, your terminology, how you have to approach some topics, like the amount of documentation as a totally easy example.
Yeah, and so you mentioned SC42, but they're not the only SDO that we're monitoring. We're also monitoring IEEE because there's a lot of AI work going on in that. At least in the EMB, it's still like health sector and medical device focused. So that helps. It's in our sector. but we're also monitoring work that's going to be starting in Zenelec, JTC 21. That will be working on a lot of the work for the EU AI Act. But since we do have members in the SNAIG that are from, they're global, we also get information from them as far as what's going on locally or nationally from them. So a good example is we were monitoring something from the UK. I think it's 30440 is the document number. And so we're assessing and monitoring that as well. So.
Well, it's a lot to have to keep an eye on. So it's helpful to have people from around the world that can tell you what's going on in their local area, or they're involved in other committees, for example, or other standards development organizations, as Patty raised. So tell us a little bit more about who is involved in it, who the members are, where they're coming from specifically.
From 19 different peer members. So I think the most west is US. From my perspective, the most east is Australia. So China or Korea is not the farthest away. The stakeholder groups are a lot of manufacturers, a lot of consultants, but also regulatory agencies, and I would say a sprinkle of science. Because for the science guys in these fields, we are too slow. They are far ahead with their ideas what AI could do or can do in the laboratory in comparison to what can be really brought to the market as medical device. Therefore, only a sprinkle of science.
Yeah. So, of course, that's one of the rubs of standardization, that it moves relatively slowly. But as an advisory group, you can see what's out there, you see what's coming, and your work would involve suggesting where to go, what kind of gaps exist, and how best to fill them and through whom. So tell me a little bit about the work that this group has done up to this point. So any sort of past efforts or outcomes, recommendations that have gone forward.
Sure. So we have 4 reports out right now. So when we were first starting, we did a couple of reports that were 6 months apart, but that's a lot of work. And so we've moved to doing an annual report ahead of our plenary. And we try and make the recommendations in there very actionable. I mean, we don't want to just be writing reports that people aren't taking, that officers aren't taking action on. So we have a number of recommendations that have moved forward now into actual writing of standards. And we've got some recommendations. For instance, we made a recommendation for a gap for testing of AI ML medical devices. So that work has started. Also, evaluation framework for AI ML medical devices, and that work has started. But we're also still trying to get traction on collaborating with different groups. So we're also collaborating on work with ISO TC 210. We've made recommendations on very foundational standards that just need a little bit of more guidance on how to apply like 1345 to AI and the data that's needed for AI ML medical devices. So that's still in discussion.
We also enlarge our IEC standards, which are in our group. So the 6061-1, which is for medical equipment, the central standard for testing of the more physical aspect, will include now a new chapter with new software technologies, including AI. In its 4th edition, the 62304 for software process lifecycle management considers to write either a normative annex when you are an AI or an additional part. So we also work on our standards. We write new standards. We work on standards of partners where we make proposals, and we help the writers. Because what we have seen is that with a lot of specific standards for the medical area, like dentistry or pulmonary images coming up, all these standards need base standards which are fit for the medical purpose to bring the medical device to the market in a safe and effective manner, but they have not the base established. SC42 is writing and writing and writing, but most of it is TR and includes often not the right requirements for the medical device manufacturers. And therefore, they have to write it on their own. And now imagine you have 3 different standards and each of them needs data management. As example, this is basic in AI and no one has a base for data management. What should they do? Should everyone write in the middle always a little bit about data management here, a little bit about data management here, there, and then the 3 standards have written totally different requirements, but the manufacturer has to apply all 3, which can happen. And we help then with a list of suitable standards and an architecture. So it's a layered architecture where the more specific you are, please look in the more generic layers if there is already something you can use and you have not to write on your own. And therefore, we have this list of suitable standards where the writers of these standards, but also everyone, it's a public document, can look, good, these standards are assessed by TC62, voted on by TC62 as suitable in the area and for writing standards in the area. There's currently a lot of base standards, some from us, some from partners, some from SC42. And the list is growing, but you can only include published standards because you cannot reference a draft, a CD of someone. So we have to wait until the standards are published. Then we can include them, even when we know ahead that this is a very good candidate to be in the list.
Right. So I think that our 4th report that came out was a major report for the SNAIG. So it talks about what Regina was just speaking about. It has a lot of information about where we see gaps, what we see is needed, who our partners are, who we're working with. So there's a figure in there, a diagram in there that's often used in presentations. And then also talking about this list of suitable standards that is available on the IEC TC 62 site. And it's for the standards writers mainly, so that when they're writing standards, they know, okay, since SNAIG is assessing so many of the standards, and we're saying, okay, that could be suitable for the medical device sector, or no, we need to add things and it needs to go into our pipeline of working with our partners. So that's the list that Regina is talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, this collaborative activity is really important when there's so much parallel work going on. In a lot of cases, people just don't know where to start, or they don't know, they know that there's plenty out there, but they don't know, how relevant is this to what I want to do? So this is really important initiative. And for those who are watching this and are interested in either getting involved or would like to have some influence into the work of this group, what's the best pathway for them to get involved, to get engaged in it?
Well, so the information about SNAIG is publicly available on the IEC TC 62 website. So you can see who the members are. There you can contact via the website Regina and I as the co-chairs of that. Since it's an advisory group, we want active advisors. So it's not
a passive activity.
It's not a passive activity. You have to be willing. So we are meeting every other week.
Oh, great.
There's just so much information that we have to talk about, and it takes a lot of time to prepare an annual report with valid, actionable recommendations. So we're meeting every other week. So participation in that, and then participation in writing the recommendations in the report.
Not to forget, we get homework too.
Yes,
in between.
Yes, exactly. So not to scare people away from trying to become a member, but if there's just ideas, or hey, if you guys looked at this, or hey, I heard something's going on in this area, you know, it's easy to send an email to our members. To get involved, it does say that it's a membership is appointed by the chair of the TC. So reaching out when we have plenaries, or just another email or something to discuss membership, and then seeing if it's a right fit for the advisory group. So.
Okay, so lots of information publicly available, and participation through TC 62, IEC TC 62.
Yes.
Okay.
I wanted to say, when a liaison of TC 62 is interested, like 210 or 215, we can also consider this as a future member. We only need to have information about the expert. Because without information, we cannot see if this fits in the group and closes a gap we have, a knowledge gap we have.
Well, that's a great opportunity, because a lot of the other technical committees that are already in liaison are starting up work in this area. I know TC 210 is. So, well, anything we didn't cover that you would like to share before we wrap up?
I wanted to share something.
Okay.
Yeah, we had in the beginning a landscape of gaps, more or less. So topics to close, and we had a priority list of our members. And we try to close it piece after piece, priority after priority, as good as possible. Therefore, we write currently rather, sorry to say it this way, boring process fundamental standards, like testing methods or risk management. These not so exciting medical standards, because they are higher in the priority of our members and member state experts. To build this base, we have still gaps open. So it's not that this is done in the next 6 months, so that we can say in the next 6 months we have set up all the projects. This will be more of a marathon, less of a sprint.
And I'd imagine as the technology evolves, the gaps might change, or new gaps happen. There's new problems to solve through standards. So.
Right. And I think
when I want to, sorry.
I think as you're saying, our priorities, well, this year's priority for our 5th report is working on closing the gap for data lifecycle, data management. So that's going to be a big focus in our 5th report. So.
All right, wonderful. Look forward to that.
What I like to say regarding the marathon, when I want to annoy my German experts, especially my German experts, then I say it's a little bit like, fine, you have written standards for Ford Model T, the car with the biggest market coverage ever. It's great. But now we have Tesla sports cars. And trust me, They are a little bit different even when they have still wheels. You have totally new problems, including you have to redesign where do you get your gas? Gas station. You no longer can initiate a fire when you fill the gas in your car. There is no gas. There is only power in your Tesla. And this is a little bit what we have. We have a real technology change. A lot is reusable, but a lot has to be written totally new.
Makes sense. That's a good analogy. Well, Regina and Patty, thank you so much for sitting down. Learned a lot. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.